aim to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. Responding to Beijing's aggressive expansion into the trade routes and strategic islands of the South China Sea, headline talks Monday between President Joe Biden and his Philippine counterpart, President Marcos, at the White House. Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has described tensions over the Taiwan Strait as the most dangerous flashpoint in the growing U.S.-China rivalry. And the Philippine Air Force and the United States Air Force will hold Cope Thunder 23-1, a military exercise aimed at the coordination of different aircraft and various defensive and offensive tactics from May 1 to 12. Responding to Beijing's aggressive expansion into the trade routes and strategic islands of the South China Sea, headline talks between President Joe Biden and his Philippine counterpart, President Marcos, at the White House. President Marcos is on a 4-day trip that follows last week's state visit to Washington by South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and a White House meeting in January between Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Greeting Marcos in the Oval Office, Biden underlined the ironclad U.S. commitment to defending the country.
Well, Mr. President, welcome back to the White House. We were talking the way over. It's been a while since you've been here.
Yes, sir.
We were here with President Reagan and your father, and we welcome you back. And, when we met in New York last year, you told me that a strong alliance has to continue, quote, and this is your phrase, to evolve as we face the challenges of this new century. And we are facing new challenges. And I can't think of any better partner to have than you. I couldn't agree more that this relationship has to continue to evolve. And together, we're tackling climate change. We're accelerating our country's transition to clean energy. And we're standing up for our shared democratic values and workers' rights and the rule of law. And together, we're deepening our economic cooperation, which is going to continue to deepen. I think it's mutually beneficial. And we're going to announce today that I'm sending a first-of-its-kind presidential trade and investment mission to the Philippines. We talked about that very briefly up in New York. And the United States also remains ironclad in our commitment to the defense of the Philippines, including the South China Sea, and we're going to continue to support the Philippines' military modernization goals. Mr. President, our countries not only share a strong partnership, we share a deep friendship, one that has been enriched by millions of Filipino Americans and the communities all across the United States of America.
In the difficult times that we are facing ahead of us, we need to find many ways to strengthen our alliances and our partnership in the face of the new economy that we are facing post-pandemic. Beyond that, there are also the geopolitical issues that have made the region where the Philippines is arguably the most complicated geopolitical situation in the world right now. And so it is only natural that for the Philippines to look to its sole treaty partner in the world to strengthen and to redefine the relationship that we have and the roles that we play in the face of those rising tensions that we see now around the South China Sea and Asia Pacific and Indo-Pacific region. So we have many things that are new, that need to be assessed, and again, our role as partners in the world, in our worldview of what we are hoping for the future of peace not only in the Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific region, but in the whole world. So thank you once again for this opportunity, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I'm optimistic.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Alarm bells are ringing for Washington and its Asian allies as China moves ever more confidently to assert claims to sovereignty over almost the whole South China Sea, ignoring an international ruling that this has no legal basis. The tension, combined with constant saber-rattling over Taiwan, the democratically run island that Beijing claims but Washington vows to help defend, has prompted the Biden administration to rapidly bolster its military capabilities. The Philippines, which lies close to key sea lanes, and Taiwan is one of particular interest. And this month, the Philippines identified 4 military bases in addition to 5 existing ones where U.S. forces will be given access, including one located near the 10 Spratly Islands. The 2 allies also carried out their largest ever military maneuvers in recent weeks. And that has alarmed China, which accuses Washington of trying to drive a wedge between Beijing and Manila. In a reminder of how diplomatic tensions can quickly echo in the real world, a Chinese ship on April 23 narrowly missed colliding with a much smaller Philippine Coast Guard vessel in the Spratly Islands. For more, we have our North American correspondent standing by in Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria reports.
Described as an attempt to restore traditional relationships and to broaden the alliance between the U.S. and the Philippines, Philippine President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos is here in Washington, D.C. for a series of what the White House calls consequential meetings. President Marcos and his wife Louise were welcomed to the White House by President Biden and First Lady Jill. Marcos is on a 4-day trip following last week's state visit to Washington by South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and a White House meeting in January between Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Greeting Marcos in the Oval Office, Biden underlines the ironclad U.S. commitment to defending the country.
The United States also remains ironclad in our commitment to the defense of the Philippines, including the South China Sea, and we're going to continue to support the Philippines' military modernization goals.
Marcos refers to difficult times and says the Philippines finds itself in a region with arguably the most complicated geopolitical situation in the world right now.
In the difficult times that we are facing ahead of us, we need to find many ways to strengthen our alliances and our partnerships in the face of the new economy that we are facing post-pandemic. Beyond that, there are also the issues, geopolitical issues, that have made the region where the Philippines is possibly, arguably, the most complicated geopolitical situation in the world right now. So it is only natural that for the Philippines to look to its sole treaty partner in the world to strengthen and to redefine the relationship that we have and the roles that we play in the face of those rising tensions that we see now around the South China Sea and Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific regions.
A senior U.S. official says President Bongbong Marcos's U.S. visit is extremely significant and that this is the first meeting of its kind at this level and intensity in decades between the U.S. and the Philippines. Meanwhile, moments after his White House meeting, President Marcos was welcomed by the Filipino community at the nearby Ritz-Carlton Hotel Ballroom in Washington. People of Filipino heritage from the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area, and even those from as far south as North Carolina and as far north as Manitoba, Canada, made it to the welcome. In his speech, President Marcos says the protection of overseas Filipino workers is one of the administration's priorities.
We are strongly committed to pursue the third pillar of our foreign policy, which is assistance to Filipino nationals. Isa po sa mga hakbang na ating ipinapatupad ang pagtaguyod ng Department of Migrant Workers o DMW, pinangungunahan nga po ng ating kalihim Secretary Toots Ople ng DMW. Ang layunin po nito ay pagsamahin at palakasin lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno na may mandatong protektahan at isulong ang karapatan at kapakanan ng ating mga kababayan dito sa Amerika, sa Caribbean at saan mang sulok ng daigdig. Kasama ko po ang ating mga kabinet, mga membro ng kabinete upang ipagtibay ang ating pagkakaibigan sa Amerika, United States at saka ng Pilipinas. Dahil po, alam naman po ninyo, malaking bahagi doon sa usapan namin ay na nagpasalamat naman ako sa kanila. Dahil sa dami ng Pilipino na nandito sa Amerika, na nandito sa US,
President Marcos says his visit to Washington is for the strengthening of Philippine-U.S. security, defense, and economic, cultural, and people-to-people ties. He says the sacrifice and success of Filipinos in the U.S. make him proud as president.
You are valued members now of American society. Your success here has made us very, very proud back home. I take pride in being your elected president. But more than anything, I am honored to stand among you and say, Pilipino ako. Maraming salamat.
Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Meanwhile, President Marcos Jr. witnessed the signing of a memorandum of agreement between Integrated Microelectronics Incorporated of the Ayala Group and the California-based Zero Motorcycles on a strategic manufacturing collaboration on electric motorcycles. Take a look.
Well, we're delighted to be here as part of the President's trip to the United States. It's a great opportunity to sell the Philippines and to start also building relationships that move beyond the military on the economic front as well. We're delighted on this particular occasion. The Ayala Group has a subsidiary called IMI. It's an electronics subcontracting firm, and we build all kinds of products. But we're delighted in this particular case that Zero Motorcycles, a U.S. brand and a leader in the motorcycle EV space, has decided to manufacture in the Philippines in partnership with us.
The U.S.-based company will take the lead in establishing the first electronic vehicle motorcycle manufacturing site in the Philippines. IMI, for its part, will assemble Zero's electric motorcycle models as well as other assemblies in its facility in Laguna in conjunction with the manufacturing facilities for Zero in California.
We did a global search for the right place for us to take our manufacturing to the next level. Looked at every region, looked at every potential manufacturing partner, and the Philippines was by far the strongest choice for us. The Ayala Group and IMI had the technical capabilities, the infrastructure in place to do both electronics and industrial assembly, and they were the perfect partner for us to come to the next level as a business.
I think, number one, promoting the Philippines as a manufacturing base, of course, adds employment. It builds skill sets. And there is a shift also taking place globally in the shift towards electronic vehicles. I think it's no secret that we're moving from the internal combustion engine to electric vehicles. Just being able to work with the electronics world in that and making the Philippines a hub for that is a big plus. So there's employment. There's the product itself as well. We're probably looking at about maybe 200 employees, first of all, to get the manufacturing going. But there'll be many externalities that come with that. You got to package, you got to ship, you got to get out. It'll help our trading companies. It'll help the logistics companies. And every time the Philippines is seen as a hub in some way, will help us also from a reputational point of view.
The capacity that we're building with Ayala in the Philippines is for over 18,000 motorcycles annually. So although we'll start with 200 jobs just on the assembly line.
The Philippines and the U.S. Air Force, the Philippine Air Force and the U.S. Air Force will hold Cope Thunder 23-1, a military exercise aimed at the coordination of different aircraft and various defensive and offensive tactics from May 1 to the 12th. The exercise involves around 160 USAF service members and 400 PAF airmen from different PAF units, according to Air Force spokesperson Colonel Maria Consuelo Castillo in a statement today. Some of the aircraft involved in the exercise are the American F-16s and PAF F-A-50 PHS, which earlier participated in the just concluded Balikatan. The focus of the Cope Thunder 23-1, also known as CT-PH 23-1, is air-to-air operations and subject matter expert changes. Primary flight operations will take place at Clark Air Base, Pampanga. Expected to be featured in the drills and exercises are the USAF 35th Fighter Wings F-16 multi-role fighters and the PAF's FA-50 trainer jets too. Cope Thunder comes after the 18-day Philippine-U.S. Balikatan exercises involving nearly 18,000 troops in various war games wrapped up on Friday, April 28. In tonight's other news, Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has described tensions over the Taiwan Strait as the most dangerous flashpoint in the growing U.S.-China rivalry. During a speech at the Parliament, the Prime Minister highlighted the divergent views in Beijing and Washington as the most significant risk in Singapore and the Indo-Pacific region. Let's listen in.
The prevailing view in America is that their efforts to work out a cooperative relationship with China have failed. And China's growing strength and assertiveness is becoming a grave threat to U.S. interests and values. And therefore, the U.S. must go for extreme competition and maintain as large a lead as possible, in their words, over China, in foundational technologies such as semiconductor chips, quantum technology, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and green technologies, all the things that count. And it's not just the US government. Negative perceptions are prevalent amongst the population, but the most dangerous flashpoint of all is Taiwan. Singapore is good friends with China, and we are also old friends of Taiwan. Singapore rigorously upholds our One China policy and continues to support the peaceful development of cross-strait relations. China considers Taiwan as the most important issue and the One China principle to be the reddest of its red lines. But in the West, an alternative narrative is gaining currency. That the problem in cross-strait relations is a broader ideological issue of democracy versus autocracy. This is even though most countries, including most Western countries, have officially adopted One China policies. This difference of views is very worrying.
He cited the recent developments, including Taiwanese leader Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Beijing's subsequent military drills around Taiwan.
Right now, tensions over Taiwan are high. U.S.-China relations will not improve anytime soon. Even if the two powers avoid a direct conflict, which thankfully I believe neither side wishes to see, enduring enmity and bad relations between them will be very costly for both and will mean big trouble for the rest of the world. It's a very worrying outlook, but we still hope that relations between US and China do not get worse and that both sides can keep lines of communications open and with time gradually repair their relationship on the basis of mutual trust and respect.
Prime Minister Lee also highlighted the ongoing war in Ukraine as among one of the major external storms that has greatly affected not only Singapore but also impacted the whole world. Take a look.
War in Ukraine. After more than a year, the war is deadlocked with no good outcome in sight. Neither side can win, nor can either afford to lose. In fact, things have been at a stalemate since last November. The Ukrainians are understandably reluctant to stop fighting before they reclaim all of their territory. But this will be very difficult. The Russians are most unlikely to be defeated entirely, despite heavy losses. They have a large population and can still conscript more troops and mobilize more resources. The US and NATO countries are supplying Ukraine with more and more sophisticated military equipment, like longer-range artillery, the Patriot air defense system, and main battle tanks. If the Ukrainians using these Western-supplied weapons make a breakthrough on the battlefield, we cannot predict how Russia may react. What does this mean for the rest of the world? Even short of worst-case scenarios, the impact is bad. The war continues to disrupt global energy, food, and fertilizer supplies. We're all feeling it in higher prices. There are also significant implications on international relations. Relations between Russia and the NATO countries, the US and Europe, have completely broken down and will not return to normal anytime soon.
U.S. President Joe Biden will meet 18 leaders from the South Pacific when he visits Papua New Guinea this month, as the U.S. and China vie for influence. Our correspondent from Papua New Guinea, Echo Hortaleza Quinola, reports from Port Moresby.
In May this year, U.S. President Joe Biden will have a bilateral meeting with Papua New Guinea Prime Minister James Marape, as well as the 18 Pacific Island leaders from the Pacific Island Forum. This May marks the visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well to Papua New Guinea. Marape says the country is looking forward to witnessing the visit of the leaders of these two global superpowers. The 18-member Pacific Island Forum is a regional bloc of mostly small states scattered across the vast swath of ocean. The Prime Ministers of Australia and New Zealand will also attend. U.S. Special Envoy Joseph Yun said this week the United States was playing catch-up after years of relative neglect in which China's influence soared across the South Pacific. China recently signed a secretive security pact with Solomon Islands, east of Papua New Guinea, that could allow Chinese troops to be deployed or based there. Biden's trip may also put the finishing touches on a U.S. Papua New Guinea Defense Corporation agreement that would allow more joint training and the development of security infrastructure. Washington is working to establish a joint naval facility at Lumbrom on Papua New Guinea's Manus Island. Construction started in mid-2020, according to Australia's Department of Defence, which is also taking part in the initiative. 4 Guardian-class patrol boats are eventually expected to be based at the facility. Biden is set to become the first sitting U.S. president in at least a century to visit Papua New Guinea when he touches down on May 22. According to State Department records, which date back to Theodore Roosevelt's administration in 1901, no sitting U.S. president has visited Papua New Guinea. Echo Hortaleza Quinola from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
Meanwhile, the White House just announced a May 11 end to COVID vaccine requirements for travelers to the U.S. and for government employees across the world's biggest economy. More than 1 million people died from COVID-19 in the U.S. However, the White House noted that the pandemic had been all but stopped, leading to the government lifting restrictions dating back from when the disease was ravaging entire communities and forcing crippling economic shutdowns. In addition to ending the vaccine rules, President Joe Biden announced in April he was officially calling an end to the national health emergency that for more than 3 years had underpinned a series of extraordinary government measures. These included lavish funding for free COVID testing and vaccinations across the country. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.